Japan's Womenomics, a failed promise of gender equality. Imagine this, despite years of promises, Japan's efforts to boost women's participation in the workforce and politics have stalled dramatically. But here's where it gets controversial. Why is a country known for its technological prowess lagging so far behind in gender equality? Let's dive into the story of Japan's Womenomics push and why it's faltering. Back in 2012, when Shinzo Abe's Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, came back to power, they vowed to prioritize gender equality, aiming to make women shine in every aspect of Japanese society. Abe's grand plan included cutting bureaucratic red tape, modernizing labor markets, increasing productivity, and reigniting the nation's innovative spirit. Empowering women was seen as a key strategy to achieve these goals. Research from organizations like the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and even investment giants like Goldman Sachs supports the idea that nations and companies that fully utilize their female workforces tend to be more vibrant, efficient, and prosperous. Abe even cited the work of Kathy Matsui, a former Goldman Sachs economist whose studies on gender roles made her a local celebrity, when he pledged to increase women's roles in business and politics. Unfortunately, all the talk about women's empowerment turned out to be just that, talk. In 2012, Japan ranked 101st in the World Economic Forum's Gender Equality Index. Fast forward to today, and Japan has slipped to 118th out of 148 countries, a significant 17-place drop. This decline is particularly worrying given that Japan is the third-largest economy globally. The upcoming upper house elections provide a stark reminder of the slow progress towards gender parity. Of the 522 initial candidates, only 152 were women, representing 29.1% of the total. This is below the LDP's own target of 35% female lawmakers. To put it into perspective, Japan now trails even Saudi Arabia by 17 places in terms of women holding political office, according to the Inter-Parliamentary Union. So, why has Japan struggled to implement these changes? One reason is the entrenched power of the patriarchal system. History teaches us that those in power rarely give it up willingly. Change usually requires mass pressure that the ruling class cannot ignore. However, few believe the LDP, which has led Japan almost continuously since 1955, will lose its grip anytime soon. Another issue is that the Tokyo establishment tends to treat the symptoms of a problem rather than addressing the root cause. Abe and his predecessors have often focused on short-term economic fixes, such as keeping interest rates near zero, instead of tackling the deeper issues of gender inequality. This approach temporarily boosts the economy but does little to create lasting change. Over the past decade, Japan has missed a crucial opportunity to improve gender equality. While the LDP had widespread public support for leveling the playing field and breaking down barriers, they shifted focus to other priorities, making Japan an outlier among G7 nations. The consequences of this neglect are far-reaching. Japan's declining birth rate, a major concern for global debt investors, is partly due to the lack of supportive work-life balance policies. Many women delay having children because of demanding work environments. Additionally, the rise of non-regular employment has disproportionately affected women, offering lower wages, limited career advancement opportunities, and reduced job security. As we look to Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and the new government, one question looms large: what steps will they take to address these critical issues? So far, there have been no concrete proposals or new ideas to empower half of Japan's 124 million citizens. This election season presents a vital opportunity for change, but it remains to be seen whether the political discourse will shift to include meaningful discussions on gender equality. In conclusion, while Japan's Womenomics push began with promising intentions, it has unfortunately aged terribly alongside the country's struggling economy. The path forward requires addressing deep-seated issues and embracing new strategies. Will the next government be willing to make the necessary changes, or will Japan continue to fall behind in the race for gender equality? Walls remain high for women in Japan's diet 80 years after suffrage win. Imagine a world where half the population is still fighting to be heard in the halls of power. In Japan, 80 years after women won the right to participate in politics, they're still struggling to break through the glass ceiling. The recent House of Councillors election saw a record-breaking 152 women vying for upper house seats. But this is only 30% of all candidates, a stark contrast to their male counterparts. Each political party is making efforts to boost female representation, yet the walls remain high. Progress for women in politics is painfully slow, sighed Midori Takahashi, a descendant of one of Japan's first female politicians, Haru Wazaki. Wazaki's political career was short but impactful, and Takahashi continues her legacy as a social welfare worker. Despite incremental increases in female representation, Japan ranks a disappointing 138th in the world for female political participation. The Law on Promotion of Gender Equality in the Political Field, enacted in 2018, aimed to balance male and female candidates, but progress has been slow. The biggest wall is the difficulty of balancing political duties with parenting, said Taki Ito, an upper house member and mother. Ito, who founded a cross-party parliamentary group for parents, believes it's time to change the mindset of Japanese politics. We need to create a system where parents can actively participate in politics without sacrificing their family life, she added. The question remains, when will Japan's political landscape truly reflect the gender balance of its society? Join the conversation and share your thoughts below. Empowering women in rural Japan, beyond local revitalization. Imagine a Japan where women are forced to choose between their careers and their hometowns, simply because the opportunities they deserve are scarce in regional areas. This harsh reality is what many women in Japan face today, and it's a pressing issue that demands attention. But here's where it gets controversial. While the government is taking steps to address this problem, some argue that their approach is misguided. The Japanese government has recently unveiled a key strategy for gender equality, known as the Basic Policy on Gender Equality and Empowerment of Women. This initiative aims to create an environment where people can thrive in various fields, regardless of their gender, in regional areas. However, it's essential to consider a female-centric perspective and consider the reasons why women are leaving rural areas in the first place. According to a survey conducted by the Cabinet Office, young women are fleeing their hometowns due to a lack of access to quality education, job opportunities, and a desire for independence from their families and communities. On the other hand, a surprising 60% of women from regional areas living in the Tokyo metropolitan area expressed a strong attachment to their hometowns, surpassing the 50% of men who felt the same way. Moreover, some 13% of women and 9% of men expressed a desire to return to their hometowns in the future. These findings suggest that women from regional areas have a deep affection for their hometowns, but feel compelled to leave in search of better opportunities. The White Paper on Gender Equality 2025 analyzes these survey results, concluding that women from regional areas have a stronger attachment to their hometowns compared to men. However, focusing solely on this gender difference might be misguided, as it overlooks the broader issue of promoting women's active participation in society. If the ultimate goal is to retain women in regional areas to mitigate declining birth rates and population decline, it may diverge from the true intent of empowering women to reach their full potential. The upcoming House of Councillors election has brought attention to this issue, with the ruling Liberal Democratic Party pledging to promote the creation of regional communities that attract young people and women. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has emphasized that countermeasures for falling birth rates and regional revitalization are inseparable. However, Japan still lags behind in terms of gender equality, ranking 118th out of 148 countries in the Global Gender Gap report by the World Economic Forum. This persistent gender gap is particularly pronounced in the political field. So, what's the way forward? Supporting women's socioeconomic participation should not be limited to a means of regional revitalization, rather, it should be an initiative that respects women's intentions, self-realization, and autonomy. As we move forward, it's crucial to ask, are we truly addressing the root causes of women's exodus from regional areas, or are we just treating the symptoms? And this is the part most people miss. By prioritizing women's empowerment and providing them with equal opportunities, we can create a more equitable society that benefits everyone, regardless of gender or location. But here's the question, Do you think the government's approach is sufficient, or do we need a more radical shift in our approach to gender equality? Share your thoughts in the comments below.